Hey guys, welcome back to Spite Plays. Today we have a video on how to politic in cEDH, and I'm here with my co-host Alex. How you doing?
Good. Glad to be back after a little bit of a break for the channel.
Yeah, just a little break, about a month. So we've been seeing a lot of talk about politicking in cEDH, how to do it, what you should do. Honestly, my opinion, I think Alex is too. Politicking sucks, and most people suck at it, to be honest. So that was the title of the video is going to be why politicking sucks and you suck at it. Um, we're gonna be going over the the reasons why. We're gonna start with why politicking sucks usually. So politicking, usually people play cEDH to get away from politicking for the most part. From like casual games, like they get
And it
away
used to
from
be
yeah.
that people kind of acknowledged that, oh, politicking is sort of a casual commander thing, and here in competitive, we don't really do that. I mean, people don't fall under that mentality so much these days, but it definitely used to be a common refrain back a few years ago. And it's
Yeah,
never been true. It's reduced. It's in a little bit of a different form. You might say it's like more savvy, and you don't have these random things of, if you don't attack me for 3 turns, then I won't counter your spell or something to that extent.
right.
But it's
Yeah,
still around.
yeah, you get a lot less of it. Honestly, we'll go over a couple points here though, but usually politicking is used to kind of sway more, I'd say like newer players to kind of do what you'd want in a sense, and try to make them like, especially like play to like the board versus more to like what people have in hand. So like someone could be really far ahead on the board, but they have like 0 cards in hand. So you know exactly what they're doing. And then someone could have drawn 10 cards off Ristic Study, but they have like 3 permanents in play and they're not really doing anything. You know, it's like a Rog Silas, for instance. And they just have like a Rog and rocks out, but they have like 15 cards in hand. You could tell a player like, oh, look at it, this person has all this stuff out. Like, wow, they're really set up to win. And then they can like throw their stuff at that person and then lose to the person that's actually in the best position, even though you can't see it. So a lot of hidden
It,
information. Yeah, I don't know if you agree with that, Alex, but
no, it's definitely true. I think politicking often takes this sort of predatory form, and people are cognizant of this. It's kind of obvious, which is sort of another reason why politicking is not great, but we can get into that more later, where you'll see that there's either a lot of revealed information or a large chunk of hidden information. Like you're saying, playing to the board versus playing to the hand,
yeah,
and so you'll get people to focus on that, and it's very obvious. I mean, when you know it's a known quantity that you're attacking, right?
yeah, 100%.
You're basically getting someone else to exchange resources. You kick away the permanents on the board. Okay, I don't need to worry about this player as much. You get someone else to just hound the other person whenever they try to cast their spells from hand. Okay, that huge hand resource isn't something I have to worry about because they're not set up. Um,
Right.
so you get into this sort of dynamic, and people know what you're doing in a lot of the cases.
Yeah.
It's kind of obvious when you're trying to make a suggestion of, oh, this could be a problem. Well, what are you
Right.
revealing? It's more
Right.
of a problem for you,
Es-
or that
es-
you would like someone to deal with it.
yeah, especially when, I mean, now that there's been more stacks coming into the meta, like especially with that, like if why remove it when you can get someone else to remove it for you? So like, especially if someone wants you to remove something, it might be because it's affecting them more than they lead on, right? So I think politicking, playing against better players, when you try to politic to get someone to do something, it actually just reveals too much information. Like,
It's definitely
yeah,
true, and people will sort of dress it up as with the clever word tricks. They'll say, "Oh, this Dredith is a problem for us," or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
this Dothi is having a huge impact on the table, and wow, look at all the cards they have." But
Right.
but yeah, if you are savvy, a lot of Magic players, as their experience with the game, they learn to pick up a lot more on those hidden information, and you'd better believe that they're paying attention to every scrap of information that's coming out of your mouth.
100%. Especially like saw in one of the mocks Masters, I think it was Freedom Waffle, posted a video of like the live politicking. Did you watch that, Alex, or no?
I believe I did, yeah.
Okay, yeah. They were talking so much. Like, it was like, and most people in the comments are like, dude, this is like ridiculous. And I agree, honestly. I think there needs to be slow play warnings for people just talking too much. Like, if the play is obvious,
I've been tempted.
just do it. Like, yeah, no, honestly, I mean, I think I have called slow play on people for just saying like things, like just trying to repeat things over and over. And I'm like, are you casting that or no? Like, if not, I'm gonna call a judge. This is just too long. But like, there was like someone casted a tutor, and I believe Popper, Fanatic, or Zen, he had an Aven, and he's like, I'm gonna Aven this unless you tutor for this, this, and that. And like, it's like, dude, just everyone else was like, dude, just Aven him. Like, he's like, what are they gonna? So in that situation, if I was the Vamp tutor player, I'd be like, yeah, I'll grab that, and then grab whatever the hell I wanted, right? Like, I'm not gonna listen to some guy trying to Aven me. I don't care. Like, Aven me or not, like you do it. It's the right play.
Yeah.
Right?
So
it's like the right play is obvious.
Well, so there are certain things to this, right? So the caveat, obviously, to what you're saying with just Vamp for whatever is,
right.
If I guess if you are, unless you're lying about what you're doing, right? But yeah, in general, it's better to, if you're going to do something like that and you're in a sort of stable environment where players go up against each other with fair regularity, right? You're not going to, it's not going to be a one and done game. You don't want to say like, oh yeah, I'll get exactly this, and then you just get like something and people never listen to you again whenever you say something. You don't really want that to happen.
Yeah, that's true.
But in general, for situations like that, I think it is helpful to just kind of clam up and say, whatever play you're going to make, just do it, and kind of just indicate like, okay, priority is passed, you have priority, and go down the line and force the issue.
Yeah, you don't
That's
have to.
a very good way of.
You don't have to say anything. Like, the best thing is to literally just say nothing. Like, just if they're like, I'll cast this and this and that, I'll Aven you if you don't grab this, and just be like, okay, are you casting Aven? Like, that's all you have to ask. You don't really have to say anything else. And if they like, and that's revealing that like Zen doesn't really have anything besides this Aven, like that's kind of what it was revealing, is like, oh, he really needed to get this Aven off on something.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, just
so,
do it.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? If you have this Aven, you're saying like, oh, I need you to get X thing, or sometimes they'll be like, oh, I need you to get like a board wipe or something here. Right. Well, you're indicating very clearly that that's what you're soft to right now.
Exactly. Like, so, you don't have the answer for that, but you can try to force someone to make it. Like, I'm not going to play Shorikai and say like, oh, if you don't tutor for this thing, I'm going to counter it, right? Like, that's just not going to work out for me in the most part.
And so what I'd say, the principle I always come back to when thinking about politicking is this. Politicking is inversely proportionally effective to the skill level of all the players at the table. What that means really is when all the players are fairly low skill level and they're not looking for these warning signs, you can very easily pull these gotchas you did the thing I wanted. Okay, I win the game now.
Yeah.
But against experienced players, often it's a liability. And what I've noticed from players, especially coming from 60 card formats, is sometimes they won't say anything at all. And actually, I've seen players not even speak through the plays of what they're doing occasionally, of like, I'll activate this. They'll actually just tap the card and not say anything and, point at people, right? That is another way that you can do it. Not even verbally indicating, but still with body language showing this is happening.
If you make your plays fast and like confidently, it doesn't look like you're setting up for things, right? So if I'm like taking a long time on my turn, like, shoot, I gotta do this. But if I'm just like, oh, activate this, do that, and they're like, responses? No? Okay, cool. And you just keep going along, like, it shows that, one, you're really good at your deck, but it also could show that they don't, like, if you play it around the same pace, it actually is good because it's showing that, oh, you're not in the tank for like a long time. And I've tried to get better with like playing turbo and doing my stuff a little quicker, especially just to not get like slow play called as well, but like just to like do things a little quicker, that I can
It's
it
good to play
sometimes,
efficiently.
yeah, sometimes it actually will win you games because people will just be like, yeah, sure, like they just pass on it because they just want the game flow
It
to
looks
move.
innocuous enough, but
Yeah,
it might be the exact thing that you need to resolve for your game plan to come together.
right. Little things like start adding up. So that's the thing. So yeah, we can start talking about why you should politic. There are some. It was a joke on why politics sucks, but it doesn't suck all the time. There are times where it's good, and definitely where you need to sometimes do it. Main one being like, someone puts Underworld Breach on the stack, and like you're like, hey, I don't have anything for this, and you can like maybe show a card in your hand or something, or if you say, hey, I do have something for this, but it's like situational, i.e. Mind Break Trap or something, and you
Yeah.
can't like, you don't have any mana for it. You're like, hey, can someone trigger this? So there's certain times like that where it's good to work together to make sure everyone
Right.
survives the turn, right?
And a very common one that you will see from people is a declaration in the vein of, I can't fight this, but if you
Right.
help fight this, then I can back you up.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that often happens when you have let's say, Underworld Breach on the stack and you have a Dispel in hand, and you're
exactly,
hoping that somebody else has the Swan Song or a Force of Will or what have you, and
exactly.
then you can
Yeah.
protect their interaction.
And like you're revealing you have that, so like you are losing
Yes,
the
it's
information
not
war, but it is worth it
it's
in
not
that
great
situation.
if
Yeah,
yeah, it's not great for you on the transaction, but it is also better than being completely cold to your opponent's combo.
it's better than passing priority and just losing, right? Like
Yeah,
that's the main thing. So like even if you're like last in priority, you can say this as well and just be like, hey, I actually like to do it more when I'm last in priority. I just be like, hey, I can back you guys up. I just don't have the
that's
answer for this.
that's
Like
also the
that's
corollary
pretty
to
much
it.
it.
When you're farther back in turn order or in priority, you actually do have more leniency to not be the one to pull the trigger. And actually,
Right. You
especially when
shouldn't.
you're farther back in turn order, you really do want to lean into that. When you're already at a disadvantage,
Yeah.
you need to make other people cast their spells to get whatever edge you can.
Yeah. And then another one is like resource management. Some people, this is also kind of toward the newer player thing, but like sometimes, especially in playing certain styles, like I've been playing a ton of Shorakai, and like the controlly aspect of decks, it's just like you can have a lot of resources on board. Same with stacks. Like you can have a lot of resources on board, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily winning. And it looks scary, but a lot of the times, like, you don't really have anything to do except like interact with your opponents. So if you show like your opponents that, or you like let them know, like, yeah, like if you like, I'll play a Smothering Tithe, and it's like someone will try to force a Vigorate or something, and I'm like, hey, like,
So you
I
know,
have
my hand is
nothing.
full of interaction.
Yeah, if you take the Smothering Tithe away from me, I can't interact. And like I'll show them my hand. I literally show them my hand. I'll just be like, "This is what I have," and like they're like, "Oh, okay." I'll probably hit
Yeah.
the Tivit player that just got a swing with Tivit and is like slowly accruing value. It's like,
Well, this is a classic
yeah,
thing that John has done in plenty of games. Also, on the other hand, where you have multiple fast decks that are against you, and you aren't confident that you have the advantage to win the race for that
right.
sort of thing, he oftentimes it's something like, "Oops, I
Drop the
dropped my
force.
force of will,"
Yeah,
and you're just revealing the information to the table, but it makes
exactly.
people second guess,
Yeah,
because a lot of times you don't have the interaction to fight everything at once. And if
definitely.
one
Yeah,
person pulls the trigger, you might be able to stop them, but the next person just sees the window open for them.
exactly.
And yeah, if you're not the one winning, you definitely want to mitigate that.
Yeah, like some people will try to like, especially like, I don't know if it's like newer, but some people just play styles like they'll just like jam into things, and if you know that, like if I'm playing short guy and I'm like, okay, this guy's gonna jam and the guy after him is gonna jam, and they just set up, both of them set up, they both like M-sealed, I don't know, like they have set up turns. I will like, for the guy, it goes to that guy's turn, I'll just be like, oh, that's a force will, that's cool, and then I'll drop a force, and sometimes I'll drop a silence too. I'll be
Right,
like,
yeah.
oh, you're playing Mardu, and I know silence just completely destroys all of your combos. Oh, Orange Chant. Oh, that's a weird card. All right, and so like, yeah, dropping those type of cards where they're like, okay, well, yeah, I jam into this. I am just essentially giving the next guy the win. And so, like, letting them know that is good and being like, you can slow things down.
Once again, also, don't hear this and think that you're actually ahead on the exchange when you reveal information.
No,
you're not. You
You're
don't
definitely
actually
not.
want to do that.
That's
What
the
you're
last
doing
case.
is you're forcing the other players to play a little bit slower and accumulate resources to where they think that they can actually pull the trigger and beat you in that 1-for-1 race, but
Exactly.
or get around it somehow, right? Like maybe you I don't know, maybe you activate Oswald or something like that, and you put a defense grid into play, something like that, where you can't counter it.
Like a more sneaky. They have to go for a different line.
Right, but
when
you're slowing them down.
Yeah.
That's the point. That's all you're doing. You're buying some more time for yourself and trying not to die there.
Yeah, well, you do open yourself up to being like, quote unquote, priority bullied.
Yes.
When you do this as well, so like keep that in mind. If someone like is accruing as many resources as I am in like a control shell type thing, and like I know they also have counters and they're first in priority, I will actively pass and lose. That's just how I play. I don't get priority bullied, like, personally, and I think most people should do this. If like the other person is trying to work with me, then it's different. Like if I'm like, hey, and
you can also kind of tell. Also, often when you get to these points in the game, you're multiple turns in, and you might have a little bit of a read if they're going to play selfishly or they're going to contribute.
Exactly. Like, I don't know, say like a Tim DeCrom. They drew a bunch of cards and I'm playing short guy. I know they have a better chance to show wins earlier than me. And so if they are first in priority passing to me after I like maybe revealed one thing, and that's the only thing I have, I'm going to be like, hey, I'm going to pass on this unless you show me like you just straight up don't have anything, or I can maybe help protect if you counter it and then they try to counter back, like I'll help you kind of deal, but I'm not going to be the first one to throw the spell at it. Right.
Because if you aren't going for this sort of thing, then you're very liable to fall into the chasm of, I stop the one thing that's on the stack, the Tim DeCrom player says great and punches you in the face and the game's over.
Right. Yeah, that's and this just goes to show why politicking most of the time sucks. It's like, even when used very well, it's very hard to use it. It's a last case thing that you want to use it. The biggest thing I've seen used for, and we talked about it here now, is just with like helping new players threat assess, kind of. Honestly, the most politicking I do is usually against other people trying to politic, I feel like, newer players into making like bad plays. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. So you see this fairly often with politicking when there's somebody that in the pod that's clearly newer to the format or less experienced playing the game. You're often going to see at least one person kind of latch onto them and think, okay, I'm going to advance my own game plan by getting this guy to do what I want. And you have to intervene and say like, no, I'm not going to let you puppet this guy. Like this is what this guy is trying to get you to do. Don't listen to him. Please don't tap out for your commander and pass the turn when multiple people are like going to be presenting a win right now.
Yeah.
And you have to sort of coach them, because otherwise there's a sort of plane chase effect where this person isn't really playing the game in a way that's going to be effective for them winning, but they're changing the outcome of everybody else.
It is very interesting to do that. It's like hard because then people would be like, oh, like you're just doing it for your advantage, and in a way it's like you can be, but for the most part, if you are like consistently usually trying to help people, especially if you play against the same people or in the same community, they'll kind of know that you're not actually like you're genuinely trying to help them play properly. Even like sequencing stuff, like you can like, I guess I don't know about helping there, but like you can definitely let people know, not even help people, but you can let people know like, hey, there's 2 turbo decks going after you. I can stop one of them. I don't know if you have something to stop the other. Just like small things like that.
Just so you're aware, if you're not taking this into consideration, then we likely all die to one of them.
Right. Just like small suggestions like that is more than enough. You don't need to say like, you don't need to like go into depth of how they should play their spells and stuff. You don't need to tell people how to play. You can just make suggestions like that, just so they kind of know how the flow of the game is going to be going, and just not, just helping them. To me personally, play properly. That's how I see it, because I prefer cEDH when people are playing like to the best of their ability. I just like playing cEDH games like that, even tournament
And
games.
It really does help also when you have somebody that's getting into the format and you're giving them these suggestions, and you're not trying to turn them into a complete marionette, right? Because
Exactly, yeah.
I've actually seen this after games where something like that happens, and they're saying like, oh, in that moment I wasn't even thinking of that, and they'll bank that information and they'll grow from it as a player.
Right, which is good. And then let's see. Yeah, so I guess for the last thing was like politicking in tournaments. Though we can go back onto the tournament thing. Yeah, I think in tournaments you definitely should be calling slow play if people are talking too much and making the game go longer than it should, especially when you're playing certain archetypes. Like playing, for me, I've been playing Shorkai. If people are taking like more than a minute plus on like just to play like random things into like certain things, or like doing something and like someone's saying like, oh, you need to counter, I don't know, people just like talking way too
No,
much
I certainly agree with that,
it's
and I've
it's
actually
too
found
much.
myself, I've found myself, despite saying that I'm willing to call slow play, I'm still actually a little too reluctant to call slow play. I think
Yeah,
even when people are discussing things, it's perfectly all right to call slow play on them. That's what
yeah,
I'm coming around to. Even obviously the classic slow play thing is, nothing's happening and they're just looking at their hand, tanking,
right.
moving their cards around on the board. Okay, that's one thing, but don't get distracted by the talking. That is also running down the clock and wasting time.
It is,
and
yeah.
and actually, in a recent tournament I was in, I realized after the game was done, of like, I did what I could in this situation, but I actually should have called slow play earlier just to speed things along, because
Right.
there was too much conversation happening and it bloated the game, and I actually did not I actually missed out on a turn where I could have potentially won the game, because time got called. That's just how it goes
Okay.
occasionally.
Right, yeah, and that's the thing. You have to keep in mind what deck you're playing and how much, depending on the deck you're playing, also depends on how much you do need to like talk and politic, I guess. Playing more control-y stack stuff, you do need to talk a little bit more, because that archetype in a 4-player format is already at a disadvantage, so you need to kind of weave through and kind of make sure that games don't just get thrown essentially by other players, and so that you do have to not like politic, but you have to kind of do what we were saying, where you show people, help people threat assess in a way, and you've played the deck for a while, and like if you can do that, as long as you're confident with yourself in it, you should be fine. The more you play the format, the better you'll get at just knowing when certain things need to be discussed and when things just don't really need to be discussed. Like,
Broadly speaking,
yeah,
politicking is going to be more reserved for the Swiss rounds before Top Cut. That's where it's often most effective, in these sort of mixed pods where it's a little bit more of the Wild West and you don't know what's going on.
yeah,
And once you move into top 16, top 4, you should definitely have the expectation that your opponents will be savvy. They'll latch on to every word that you give them, and
right.
so try not to reveal too much information, because hidden information is one of the most crucial aspects to this game. It's what makes it more
Yeah,
like poker than chess in a lot of ways.
100%. Yeah, saying too much is not good, especially against really good players. They're just gonna be like, oh, so you have that in hand. Like, I've had that happen before, where I like was like trying to get someone to kind of like get rid of something, and then another player was like, oh, like, yeah, you got that in hand then, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, no, like, I don't know, you can't even like, right, you don't want to be like flat out lying, so you can, I mean, I guess that's another thing, like,
We can
should
go
you
into
lie?
that, yeah.
That is like more of our last point, is like, should you lie? I lie when people ask dumb questions. I'm gonna be 100% honest. If I'm playing a like turbo deck and someone goes, are you going to win on your turn? I go, no. It's like more sarcastic, but it's like, are you gonna try to win? And it's like, Are we not trying to win? Why are we playing CDH? Are we all trying to lose? Are we all just sitting here to like have 5-hour games and play mono white stacks and beat each other with Sarah Ascendants? Like, that's not the CDH I want to play. Everyone's trying to win on all of their turns. If you can win on your turn and know that it's not going to get stopped or protected, most people will try to do that, right? So when people ask stupid questions like that, I respond with stupid answers. That's kind of
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
In general, I draw a hard line for myself at not outright lying to people, but I would, if there is a dumb question like that, then I'll give a answer that's more non-committal of, oh, are you going to win next turn? Well, you better believe I'm going to advance my game state. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. You can say things like that as well. Also, like if people give you deals, I actually did this. Me and Alex did this. Alex gave me a deal and then tried to like win, but like messed up. And then I like still upheld the deal for some reason and then didn't win. And I was like, why did I do that? When Alex was like, oh, if you don't activate that next turn, it was a Poly. I was playing Poly Thrasius. And Proteus staff, Proteus staff, and then I think you were like, oh shoot, or you like thought you had a line, and then started going for it, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're losing, and then you didn't win, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna hold up my deal, and it's like, well, the deal was like, if I get another
my
turn,
line,
right?
I mean, the thing is, for those sort of things, there's one thing to be said about upholding the deal. Right. And another to be said about the terms of the negotiation have changed.
Exactly.
So I could see it either way, to be honest. And you could argue for it. It gets a little granular.
Yeah. But like in that situation though, I should have just won because like, what, you messed up your line. Okay, well the deal is obviously not clear because that was assuming you weren't going to try to win, right? Like that was assuming I wasn't going to get another turn, but like you didn't say anything.
You assumed that. I did not say that.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. Like some deals, like, and that's why deals aren't good. Again, politicking fucking sucks.
That's the thing about the hidden information, right? And I've definitely had games where I tell people very often now. I'm very eager to tell people, oh, you have a Wishclaw talisman. If you give that to me, I'll give it back to you.
Right. Yeah. No, that's something. It
often works out, and that tips it over the edge often.
Right.
But I definitely have had games where somebody's looking around for Wishclaw or something like that, and it comes to the point where there needs to be like multiple pieces of removal, let's say, to beat a board state. I actually do remember a game where somebody passed me a Wishclaw with the expectation, which I agreed to, that okay, when you untap with Wishclaw, you'll get a Chain of Vapor, and deal with the stuff. I said, yeah, of course, I'll get Chain of Vapor, with the full intention, knowing that I would bounce all of my rocks first, then bounce the stacks piece, and have all the mana I needed to try to win.
Exactly.
And that's the sort of thing that you run into because it's hidden information, and that's the benefit of clamming up also. Just not playing the political game. Say, okay, I have my cards, you have yours. Priority.
Yeah, and that was kind of the thing. Like, I think the reason I said that was I said that I could stop you, and I think I did have something, but you could have played it. I think you did something to play around it anyways. And so
I did something where you could not interact. I think I played a Grand Abolisher or something like that. That I expect. And you still had the interaction hand, but I bungled the line and passed the turn.
Yeah, and so like in that case, I should have just set. I was next in priority, so it's like, why am I politicking with this guy? Like, obviously, if he's trying to win, like, I need to stop him. If I'm next in priority, that's my goal. So like, it's like, yeah, like I should have just said nothing. I would have won that game. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff going on there. There are like also so in Swiss rounds, there are a lot of people, and I think it'll kind of be getting cut out as more people get better at the format. But in Swiss rounds, there's definitely a lot of prominent players that get through Swiss very consistently because they just know how to talk. Like, that's just how it is. And so like if you're able to
if you have a silver tongue
politic against them, then that'll take away their advantage heavily. And we've seen it with our players in our server dominating other players that are quote unquote, top players, best cEDH players of all time, and having like a 8-1 record against them. Like
Right.
in tournament games, not just pickup games or whatever.
And what it gets down to is politicking is an aspect of the game, to be sure. So don't neglect your knowledge of it.
Right.
But realistically, it's much less important than almost any other aspect of the game that you could be developing your skills in. So
100%,
it's worth not neglecting entirely, but also don't put too much stock into it. If your claim to fame is that I'm an excellent politicker, I think you need to brush up on your other skills for this game because that's
Definitely.
only going to carry you so far. It's a very good way to win out in Swiss and never win a tournament fully.
Exactly.
You'll be making top 16 forever.
That is the big thing. That's why you see a lot of people getting to these top 16s consistently and never getting top 4 or never winning tournaments. They rely too heavily on politicking.
I'm not saying obviously that if you're good at politicking, that's a bad thing somehow.
No,
but
it's not. No,
it should not be the most robust part of your arsenal.
No. Like we said, the main things are going to be sequencing. Your play, like doing your plan, knowing the matchups, just everything else. Like just everything else about playing to your best ability internally. Like for you to be. Knowing your cards, knowing your opponent's cards, knowing what they could have, knowing all these situations, what to play around, how to make it to the next turn, if you need to, or how to win that turn protected, those type of things. And also playing at a reasonable pace is I think something that people need to be doing a little bit more because that is another skill too, playing pretty quickly. And I think it's going to be transferring over with Mox Masters dropping the times to 75 minutes. And I think some other places dropping into 75. We used to play at 50-minute round times with turns and stuff, which kind of ends up being 75 minutes anyways. But it's that in and of itself is much better to be playing at a reasonable pace because if you're playing in a 1v1 tournament like Legacy or Modern or whatever, and you're playing a certain archetype, you need to know how to play quick. Control players literally land pass immediately and just play on their opponent's turns or other things. Obviously you're not going to do that as much in cEDH, but you have to know how to play to your certain strengths and make sure you're playing and sequencing things properly in a good amount of time. Because I've even going through combo turns and got called for slow play, even though it was pretty obvious what I was doing. But I couldn't shortcut it. So you need to know your deck way more than politicking.
It's good. It's good to play as quickly as you can without actually getting into the sort of uncomfortable situation where you make oversights in your gameplay. Just play as smoothly and efficiently as possible.
Yeah. What I'm saying, if you sequence things smoothly and play smoothly, it also could help with how people are seeing you play, and
your opponents will appreciate it.
Yeah, they'll appreciate it, but also they might underestimate things that are really scary because you played the same pace the whole time. You didn't pause for 4 minutes on a turn to play the certain thing that is going to win you the game in a couple turns because you're should I play this now? You weren't tanking. You were just okay, this is the right play to do. I'm going to slam this here. Okay, cool. And then go now, pass. It's different for control decks and different things. In Turbo, there are certain decks where you just don't politic as much. I'm going to be honest, more Turbo proactive decks, we all know what you're doing. You're just fucking jamming it. But if you're playing a more control-y, stacksy style of play, and that's why I think control decks and stacks decks, which actually will probably be our next video, is going to be how to play control. But the control decks and the stacks decks, you need to know how to play at a good pace and be able to sequence things, and you just need to know your deck a lot better.
Absolutely agree.
With that type of archetype in the 4-player format, it's just a lot harder, and that's why the conversion rate, I think, for those type of decks are usually pretty low. The only one that we see is Thras Bruce, and that's because it's just 2-card Monty deck in a way that just plays counter spells and survives the turn. It kind of that's kind of how Timnacrom is too. I guess it's more controlling, but it's a 2-card Monty with hate bears type thing, and so. Yeah, those to play the true traditional stacks, true traditional control, that takes a lot of practice.
Well, I guess one more thing, I'll
Hmm.
piggyback on what you were saying with, I feel with fast combo decks, it does the politicking discussion, it does play into what you're saying about making your plays quickly and efficiently,
Right.
because there are definitely situations where if you're hung up on the sequencing at certain parts,
Hmm.
then opponents can pick up on it
Oh,
and find the
100%.
right spot to stop you.
Yeah.
So do not cast the dark ritual with your hand shaking if you absolutely need it to resolve for your game plan to work,
Right.
because there
Yeah.
are definitely times where you need to start on something like Dark Ritual to have the requisite mana where you're able to have hold up your interaction afterward.
Yeah, this also plays in a lot more into in paper. I personally only play in paper tournaments. I know webcam's cool. I love you guys playing Mox Masters and stuff, but I need to read body language. I need to look at people. I need to see how they're playing and how they're doing certain things, because it is a very big part of the game that unfortunately webcam misses. But it really is like you can see certain things, and that's why you should try to be you should try to reveal as little information as possible, even with politicking, but also with your body language. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
understanding the body language and what opponents are indicating is pretty big.
yeah. There's certain people that you literally I've played against that like will like, yeah, like Alex said, like casting dark ritual and they're like kind of like shaking. It's like, all right, what's coming after this dark ritual? like, like you have a mental misstep in hand. You're like, I wanted to use this to protect my thing, but this guy is like shaking and wanting this dark ritual to resolve. I'm
He
gonna
wants
mental
it
this
so
time.
bad. And
Yeah.
obviously the reason for that is because he needs the mana so he can go like, okay, now I'm gonna like play
Cabal
my lines I've
ritual.
diamond.
Yeah.
Or
Like,
yeah, it has to be something with sequencing. So
right. Right.
it's not as common. It comes up occasionally. Make
Yeah.
of that what you will.
Right. And you can bait people into things too. So you can, this goes the other way. You can
Yes.
cast a dark ritual and be like, oh, like this needs to resolve, and you already have enough mana to do what you want. They'll throw a misstep at it, and then you can play something else that you actually needed to resolve. And then you can be like,
Yeah.
Faithless Looting, cool. Now I can discard my Citadel and weld it, right? So like things like that, like
It's feint into counter feint into counter feint all the way down.
exactly. So little stuff like that you can really get people with. But yeah, that I think that goes over most of the stuff that it's kind of annoyed with politicking, but it has a place in CDH. It's just I think the place should definitely be toned down a lot, especially in those final pods. You guys need to, and Mox Masters, you guys talk way too much. Now, listen, none of my final pods have had that much talking. I like Emrakul'd someone. You know, the one you take someone's turn, and like I took the wrong person's turn, but I was just like, I'm taking your turn, and there was no Paul. It was hilarious. He was just like, why? And I'm like, I wanted to see your deck. It's like, there's like no
Make up a justification when you pick the wrong target.
Like yes, for some things, like I don't know. It was just I and there was reasons for it, but like you don't have to explain your reasons, right? Like it's just how it is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Preserve that hidden information. I think
Anyway.
that's pretty much everything we wanted to cover.
Yeah. Thank you for hopping on, Alex. I appreciate it, and
Always a pleasure.
I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. See you later.
Bye.